Hello, linguists. How are you doing? Happy Thursday night. Welcome to another episode of the Linguists Radio. It's episode 50 today. I hope that you have had a wonderful week. We are almost at the end of the month of May. And I know that today we are expecting a lot of followers. So that's very exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time. But before we start and before I introduce you to our super special guest for tonight, I would like to make some real quick announcements as we wait for everyone to join. And please, as usual, let us know in the comments, where are you watching us from? If you're following us from Facebook or you're subscribed to the YouTube channel already, say hi, tell us where you're watching us from. So I just wanted to remind you, this is a campaign that I've been doing on Instagram, but I just wanted to remind you that traduccionjurídica.es by Fernando Cuñado and Ruth Gámez is going to start their translation workshop next week, and you have just a few days left to register. It's going to be the 24th, 25th, 26th, and 27th of May, and they are going to be transmitting the classes from Madrid, online. And it's going to be at 7 p.m. Madrid time. So make sure that you check their website. I will try to post the link where you can register. It's only $12. So it's a really, really affordable training that it's going to benefit many of you if you're interested in legal translation. And then the other two things that I wanted to let you know about, one is OHA, the Oregon Health Association, with Gaucha translations from Helen Ebby, are offering a training as well for free that it's going to start on May 25th, also next week. This is going to be mainly for healthcare interpreters, and interpreters do need to be either certified or qualified as interpreters to take this course, this training. It's going to be on May 25th, 27, then the 1st, 3rd, 8th, and 10th of June, since it goes from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Oregon time, so Pacific time. And the last one, for those peeps that are in Houston, if you're a colleague of us and you're in the Houston area, or really anywhere you are in the States, we are offering, and I say we because I am part of the HITA Association. So this is the Association for Houston Interpreters and Translators. So we're going to be offering a training in special education. I'm not going to be offering the training. HITA is going to be offering the training in special education. So any of you who are interested in this field, please feel free to go to the HITA Facebook page. And if you're not a member, you can register on the HITA website, and you can take advantage of this free webinar. And the only thing that you need to do is become a member. The webinar is going to be on May 22nd at 10 a.m. and it's going to go all the way to noon. So this Saturday, don't miss that opportunity. So I know that we have some viewers, and without any further ado, I'm going to introduce this very special guest. It's the 50th episode for the Linguist Radio, and he just turned 5 years on Facebook, on a Facebook page. It's Mr. Tony Valle. Welcome.
Wow. Thank you so much, Pamela, for that warm and gracious introduction. I'm so grateful to be here, and congratulations to you on episode 50. I'm glad to be celebrating that milestone here with you. And
well, I am really glad that you're here. It was a huge coincidence. I know that HITA was the one that mentioned that, and I hadn't really noticed that it was the 50th episode and it was your 5th anniversary. And you are the founder of the Research Center for Certified Interpreters, whom I personally feel like I owe so much of my professional development, and you're the head of it. So how do you feel about that?
Wow. Well, I should say thrilled and honored, and it's just been such a great ride. I mean, for these past 5 years. So I just, since we're talking about the Resource Center for Certified Interpreters, that's a forum that I created on Facebook. And I created it, way back then, 2016 or so, when I was still a struggling exam candidate trying to prepare for success on the state exam. And I just simply wanted, the idea was simple. I just wanted to create, I noticed that there were a lot of interpreter forums, and a lot of interpreters would go on there and ask questions and whatnot. And so I just wanted to create kind of a safe place that everyone could go to ask questions and not to feel dumb for asking them. And then more importantly, I really, I guess my driving passion was this, that if there was a resource out there, meaning a book, a training class, a teacher, a program, anything that was relevant to what we do as interpreters and specifically to how we can prepare for success on the exam, I wanted to put it out there. I wanted everybody to know about it. Because at the time it was kind of frustrating for me that I felt that I was enrolled in a certification program, and there were resources and teachers and whatnot that I was finding out about like long after I had started, right? Like I kept on having this feeling like, why didn't I know about this, a year ago or 6 months ago, right? Maybe you can relate to that. So that's why the forum was created. It was launched back then with just a few members, and it's just been so exciting to see the growth now. We've got 2,500 members over in that 5-year period, and through that, I've been able to meet wonderful people like you. So anyway, so that's just enough said, I think, on that.
No, it's not enough said because I'm going to be asking you way many more questions
All
about
right.
that. But
Yeah.
I wanted to go a little bit about your experience. So let's start. I like to, and I know that you watch the show sometimes. So I usually like to ask my guests, why did they, or how, why or how did they become interpreters? What was your case?
Okay, so wow, that could be just an entire episode in and of itself, right? But I think maybe I should say that it starts at the beginning, right, with any story, and that's the fact that I served as an interpreter for my own mom. I have my mom is from Ecuador, immigrant from Ecuador, and so she came to this country like so many, seeking to reinvent herself, seeking to build a new life for herself out here in the United States, not speaking the language, not being able to drive a car, being here in the city of Los Angeles. You could just imagine, right? And so I basically then started my career as an interpreter just by interpreting for mom, just those simple kind of everyday interactions, right? At school with the teachers, or at the store, or just anything and everything. I remember even helping her to prepare for her cosmetology licensing exam, right? So it started with that. So, growing up in this country, English, no doubt, was my first language, but fortunately, I was able to speak enough Spanish to be helpful for my mom. And so it started there. And then I would say that it was interesting because I ended up going to school, to college as an English major. I chose English and went to Cal State San Marcos. And even then, I had this sense that, okay, I was going to go to school and get my English degree, but I wanted to do something with my bilingual, my interest in not only bilingual, but also just being bicultural, right? Wanting to do something with that, but just not knowing exactly what to do, right?
Hmm.
And so it was always in the back of my mind, but what can I do was always the question, right? Now, I was an English major. I chose a career in sales. I had a very successful career in pharmaceutical sales for 7 years, and and then kind of reached now the end of that path, if you will, and felt like, well, I've done sales now, and it's taken me so far, but I really feel that I want to do something else. And again, I didn't scratch that itch yet for wanting to do something with my language, right? But even then, it was very roundabout, because what ended up happening was this, is that I took a class on how to become a mediator, or training for becoming a mediator. And so in one of my classes, I ended up having to go to the courts in Alhambra to work with a mediator there. And the minute that she found out that I was bilingual, she turned to me and said, so, like, this is a no brainer. Why don't you look into becoming a certified court interpreter? She said, the courts are hiring. There's a desperate need. I mean, you'd be great in that. And so that really was what started the whole thing. After that conversation, I came home and I told my wife, look, this is something I really need to look into. So I looked into different interpreting programs, and this was again about 2015. And, there were a number of different options, if you will. So I chose one without any experience as an interpreter, not really knowing what it means to be an interpreter. I just went to the orientation class. And again, I just went off the fact that the lady told me that I should really explore being a certified court interpreter because the courts were hiring. And I looked into what the starting salaries were for the courts, and that looked pretty good to me. And I thought, okay, well, why not choose this? So, anyways, a very, kind of roundabout way of saying it started with, interpreting for my mom, but then it wasn't until many years later that I finally decided to choose this path as an interpreter. And of course, I had the sense of why didn't I think of this sooner, So, but nonetheless, I tried to do the most that I could with the time that I have, So
Yes, of course. So this was in 2015, as you
2015,
mentioned,
yes,
and you went through the SCSI program, which
I did.
is, I assume that you started working for the immigration courts then?
Yes, I mean that was the eventual thing that happened. So I was in the program from the summer of 2015 to the summer of 2016, and actually that experience, since you mentioned it, and that opportunity really to work in immigration courts was really a godsend for me because again I had no experience right as an interpreter, and so when I realized that I could potentially be working in immigration court, interpreting for judges and attorneys and whatnot, and doing the work of an interpreter, I jumped at the chance. And so I went through the whole training, and I'm sure you know it well, the whole training and their certification process, right, to become qualified to interpret in immigration court. And as I mentioned, thank God that I did because that really gave me some experience that was beneficial to me in every sense of the word, and not to mention the fact that I believe that it was at least something now for me to have as I started to prepare for my state certification, right? So that's something I've always been very just very vocal about, just sharing that experience with others and encouraging interpreters. If you're a student, if you're an exam candidate, try to get some experience as an interpreter, whether it's immigration court. There's other ways of getting experience, but immigration court, I think, is one of the best.
I agree. And that's the reason why I was asking that, because I usually our guests, just like you, send me their bio so I can have kind of like bullet points to go through. And so when I read that you went through the SCSI program, I thought that definitely we can relate. Many of our followers are probably also have been or also have the experience of immigration court. But I also think that this was a great experience. It was, as you said, a blessing, a godsend. I mean, it was a really solid foundation
Mhm.
for
Absolutely.
you and for me and for many of us who decide to take the state certification exam, which you did on 2016.
Right. Absolutely, yeah. So I did take the exam in 2016. I that was another thing too. So taking the exam was actually part of my strategy for preparing for the exam, basically, right? So I took the state exam for the first time even before I had completed the interpreting program. So imagine that, no interpreting experience and not even having completed the program, and I was already out there in March of 2016 taking the state exam for the first time. And why did I do that? Because I wanted to know, what is this exam about? What am I going to be tested on, right? And of course, just even based on that first experience, I thought, wow, this is formidable. We're tested on our ability to interpret a document, for a legal document, from Spanish into English. Step one. Step two, from English into Spanish. Step three, to interpret a dialogue, right, in simultaneous mode, 120, 130 words a minute. And then the consecutive exam with segments of 30, 40, up to 50 words long, right, that you have to interpret accurately. And I just thought, wow, this is a very, very formidable exam. So So that's the thing, is it? So what I was always thinking about is, so what is going to be the best way to prepare for this exam? And that kind of sowed the seeds for what became the team-based approach that I'm sure we'll be talking about. Because that
Yes.
really was it, is that my process was taking the exam a couple of times as the lone soldier, on my own, failing it, and then realize, and then thinking about, so, if you don't want to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again, you got to try something else, right? So the something else was just an idea that I had. I thought, why don't I recruit at least four other team colleagues, right? That are motivated, that share, they just had to share my same level of motivation, dedication, passion for, sitting for the exam. And then why don't I try to find, I know that I'm English dominant. I thought, why don't I try to find some colleagues that are Spanish dominant that can help me in my area of weakness? And then since I'm English dominant, I might be able to help them in their area of weakness, right? So that was the basic idea. And so it was just starting with that I thought, well, I don't have every idea about the team-based approach worked out yet, but this is something that we're going to figure out as we go along together as a team. So I would say in the summer of 2016 is when I first put together my first team. And that really was a process of in kind of incorporating everyone's input and idea and trying to just work it and work it and work it until we developed an entire system, an entire strategic tactical approach to preparing for the state exam that proved to be very successful. I mean, at this point, talking about success, so at this point, I have 11 team colleagues that either work directly with me on a team, or people that I coached. I was like a coach for hire, if you will. So I put together teams to help them prepare for the exam. So I have 11 success stories for state exam certification, 5 success stories for federal exam certification, and then 2 of us who achieved our medical certification, which proves to be a very important part of my story later on as well. And speaking of successes, and I'm sorry
No, that's okay. That's
I've
okay.
got to I've got to say this. I want to put this out there actually, because tonight I want to tell the entire community of this linguist community that our very own Pamela achieved her success on the state exam. So congratulations to you! What an incredible achievement!
And you
And
were one of the first people I called. I called Helen, I
yes,
called you, and I
yes,
called a couple of other mentors. And we're going to be talking about that. I
yes,
just want to go back just a few steps
sure,
because you created the Facebook group, the Resource Center for Certified Interpreters.
right,
And then a few months after that, you created the team-based approach. I
precisely.
want to find, I would like you to tell us the link between those two. What went through your mind? Like, I know that you just said it very
Mhm.
very briefly. You touched on it, but like really, I feel like at that point you have so many resources, because this is my case. You have so many resources in the page, which is wonderful. But
Mhm.
then how do you synthesize the information, and
Mhm.
how do you make it work for you, for your goals?
And it's a brilliant question, because that is, I think, the crux of the problem that I found. I found it to be true for myself, and then also for other colleagues that I've worked with, is that when you think about it, when we prepare for the state exam, what do we have? Well, we've got, resources from whatever interpreting school that we went to, right? We have resources from a civil. There's other teachers out there that put together their own exam certification program. So you've got all those materials, right? Some of those, of course, we know Transinterpreting with Edgar Hidalgo Garcia, Virginia Valencia, and the team at Transinterpreting are just, are on the cutting edge of developing brand new materials. And so anyway, so as a candidate, you're overwhelmed with materials. And that's another thing too. I get together with a colleague, and what material are we going to study from? Let's do this. I don't think
Right.
so. Let's do this. I mean, so that's another part of it, is that as a team, you have to decide, okay, this is the material that we're going to work with, and this is what we're going to do on day 1, on day 52, on day 93, right? You have to plan it out. So it does become a very overwhelming thing, what materials to choose. And ultimately, you don't know what you don't know, right? I mean, some interpreters swear by acebo, right? That was what they got. That's what they got their certification on. But maybe at the time, that's all they had, right? So, anyways, but I think your question was, okay, Tony. So, basically, your question was, how do I go from the Facebook group to the team-based approach? I think it was just all a continuum because I was trying to figure everything out as I went along, right? But the thing was this, is that I kept on trying to come up with some sort of strategy that was always in the back of my mind, right? There's a very famous quote by a brilliant Chinese military general by the name of Sun Tzu. The Art of War is his book. He said, strategy without tactics is the slowest path to victory, but tactics without strategy is the surest pathway to defeat, right? So meaning that you've got to, for any endeavor, you've got to have strategy and you've got to have your tactics, right? And the strategy is the plan. The strategy, let's say for me, was to achieve state exam certification in the most efficient way possible. And then the tactics become, well, how do I achieve that, right? Again, the materials, my study partners, the approach, how many days a week we're going to practice, right? How much time we're going to devote to sight, simultaneous, consecutive. Now, not to mention, what about note-taking technique, right? Spending time on that and balancing everything out. Those are all the individual tactics that need to be applied, right?
And so what I'm seeing lately a lot, but I saw it first from you, honestly, is this philosophy that you can acquire way many more goals with a team than by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I watch something that you share with me very kindly. And in this, it was a video, and in this video, you were talking about a lone soldier. So I want you to explain a little bit of what is the concept of the lone soldier, please.
Okay, great question. All right, so the lone soldier. Well, and that's what I felt that I was, if you will, starting off, at my interpreting school. Now, interestingly, okay, so let me define lone soldier. It's just that, the kind of, I think, the typical exam candidate, right, that does the program, obviously by themselves. They've got the flashcards at home that they're doing by themselves. They're doing the practice sessions, right? They're doing their sight interpreting, they're simultaneous, they're doing their consecutives by themselves. That is a lone soldier, right? Most interpreters that I know, because I ask, achieved their certification as a lone soldier. They just stuck with it, and they did it, and they practiced, and they practiced, and they practiced, right? So, and again, Sun Tzu said that, strategy without tactics is the slowest path, right, to victory. And let's face it, there is some wisdom there. You can achieve success as a lone soldier, but he said it's the slowest path. And I believe, remember, I said I was looking for the most efficient, right? So that for me meant a team. That was going to be the most efficient path. So a lone soldier, then, once again, just very simple. You are spending most of your time doing exercises and practice sessions by yourself. You're making the decision, hey, I'm going to study this. I'm going to do this today. I'm going to spend X amount of hours, right? And so in the presentation that you referenced, what I said, the major benefit of being a lone soldier is what? It's autonomy, right?
Autonomy, yeah.
Yeah, you're the master of your domain. You're the king of your castle, right? You wake up and you decide, hey, today I'm going to spend 6 hours
But you
practicing,
don't. The
or
reality is that you don't,
you
right? In
don't.
many
That's what I
cases.
think. That's what I think.
Exactly.
Or here's what I experienced as a lone soldier. I would burn up a day doing one exercise, right? And I was always having this nagging doubt, like whatever I spent time on today, is this really what I need to be doing? And how do I know that whatever it is that I interpreted, how do I know that this is any good? How do I know that this would pass on an exam, right? And that nagged at me and nagged at me and nagged at me. So the next thing I thought was, well, okay, the next path, if you will, being a lone soldier, what do? You reach out to a colleague and you find the famous study buddy, right? And I tried that. I tried reaching out to my colleagues that were around me. Hey, do you want to study? Do you want to practice? Do you want to practice?
Right.
And what did we do? We got together, opened up our stuff, we kind of chat, right? Neither one of us really knows what to do. So now we're looking at each other. Okay, we got to do something. All right. And then you kind of half-heartedly do something. Okay, you go ahead and interpret, and then I'll listen to you. And again, it's now we're just spending time with somebody, but it's not really effective, right? So that's the next approach, though, kind of a study buddy, or what I call a dynamic duo. And the reason I call it a dynamic duo is for the study buddy system to work. I think that you really need to find, every Batman needs to find their Robin. Every Robin needs to find their Batman, right? Somebody that's going to be, again, that rock that's going to be with them for every practice session, where you agree on the materials you're going to work with. You give each other the feedback that each one of you needs. You're dominant in an area where your partner is weak. However, you're putting all your eggs in that one basket, right? And so that's the liability there. You have accountability, at least with a study buddy, but you don't have, you're just, everything is riding on that one person. And that's a heavy burden to bear. So with the team-based approach, you've got, now I have 4 potential practice partners that I could work with, all with different areas of strength, right? Different people are going to hear different things, give me different feedback. And that's the point, is that now when I schedule a practice session, I deliver a rendition, and then, I've got 1 or 2 sets of eyes and ears listening to me, taking notes, right? And then they tell me, hey, Tony, you skipped this, you could have said this, you omitted this, you added this. Then what do? I take down all of that feedback, and then I try to interpret it better next time. That's the essence of the team-based approach, and that's why I think it works.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that video that you sent us. I was thinking when you started telling us about this, about, I've shared with you, and I've shared with many others as well. If you guys follow us on Instagram, you know this. I have been getting a lot into fitness lately, and it's particularly into lifting weights. And when I watched the video, and when I heard you say the strategy, the tactics, and the lone soldier, I totally identified as an interpreter, and now as fitness aficionado, I guess, because it wasn't until I had a strategy and a
Mhm.
tactic that I am finally seeing results. And the same thing happened when I started studying with all my heroes. One of them is Isabel.
Yeah,
Another one
Isabel.
is my friend Nora.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until we started practicing together that I really saw or felt like I was making progress.
Mhm.
Because the issue is that, as you're saying, and I want to know if it's okay if I can share this PowerPoint
Yeah.
that you send me here,
Sure.
because it
Yeah.
illustrates it very, very well. But uh, here, let's see, which one should I put?
Mhm.
The accountability part is the
Mhm.
one that really called my attention. So um, this all works into your idea of the
Mhm.
team-based approach, which is now your passion. You told me that
Yeah.
this is your passion now.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
Tell us a
absolutely
little
it
bit
is.
about that.
Yeah, and by the way, I mean, since you mentioned it here, I think it's just an incredible story. And if you don't mind, I mean, I could maybe share part of the story. If you'd like to share part of it, we can kind of tag team on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I'll start it off by saying this, that I remember going through like one of the forums, and I noticed that there was a group, right? A group of interpreters who reached out to each other, and the idea was, hey, let's get together. Who wants to get together and prepare for the state exam? Oh, me, right? So there was a number of people on there, right? And so I thought, well, let me see how this goes, right? And so I'm just watching it for a while, and everybody's, hey, let's get together on Sunday, and then I was asking questions, hey, how did it go, on the practice session on Sunday? Oh, is it, didn't go well, or didn't happen, or whatever. I'm thinking, okay. So I just created a posting, and I just said this: look, if anybody wants, I've got experience working with teams. I think it's great that you guys are all, getting together and agreeing to cooperate to pass the exam. I think it's wonderful. It's a way to go. I said, but I've got experience doing this. If anybody here wants to hear about a team-based approach to achieving certification goals, I'll put together a presentation. There's no charge for it. I'll share with you everything that I know about how to do this, how to do it strategically and effectively, and please join me. So I think there was a group of maybe, I don't know, 18, 20 people. And then, so from that group, there were 4 of you that responded. So Pamela, Nora, Isabel, somebody else, I can't remember Who was another question?
Joanna and well, Marisa.
No, no, yeah,
Marisa.
Marisa, that was the other
Yes.
one. So it was,
Uh-huh.
yeah, so it was you four, and then I knew, Joanna just from other forums and whatnot. So I had four of you. As you know, I love the number five, and I knew that Joanna was preparing for the state exam. So I just told Joanna, hey, I've got this meeting scheduled with these four. I'd love to have a fifth team member. Would you like to join? And she agreed. And so that's really right. So I presented a team-based approach to all of you. But what I didn't do, or what I told you I wasn't going to do, I said that, at this point, I'm not going to be coaching you. I'm not going to be leading it. I'm just kind of putting it out there. And then every now and then I'll be just checking in and seeing how things are going. And I give you guys all the credit because, you saw the opportunity and you went for it and you did it. And you stuck to the program. I mean, exactly, I don't know if it's exactly the way I laid it out, but it seemed that you guys were doing all the things that I was laying out to do to make this thing work and to make it effective.
Yep.
So
I,
so of course I was absolutely thrilled when you shared with me that you had passed the exam because, it was not only a success for you that of course I'm thrilled about, but it was also a success for the team-based approach. It's another confirmation, right?
yes, and we have a lot of people, by the way, that are joining us. My study buddies, and then we have tons of other people. Please let us know where you're watching us from, and say hi to Tony. Garrett Bradford is here, Annabelle, and Rick Solari. So great to see everyone. And let us know if you have any questions as well for Tony, please. Okay, so my next question for you was, how do you find passion?
Well, you just live long enough, and eventually you find it. But man, I guess that question, right, is going to be different for everybody, right? So for me, it's a great, and I appreciate the question very much because I believe that I found it, right? So that's the thing, is that I believe that I've spent really my entire life trying to find my passion, right? And there's different things that I've done at different stages, believing this is it, this is my passion, this is what I'm going to do, right? And I've done a lot of very different things, right? I mean, a lot. And so, but there were so many things. Okay, so going back to pharmaceutical sales, I thought if I get in pharmaceutical sales, that's it, right? It's a very well paid position. If you do well, there's all kinds of prestige, awards, all kinds of stuff that you win. I got into it, and sure enough, I achieved, within 3 years of the first company that I worked with, I achieved 8 major national sales awards, including Rookie of the Year, and I got all kinds of recognition from it. But and all that was good, but what was lacking for me is real true passion. I really wasn't happy with what I was doing, right? I did it and I did it well. I won awards, but I thought, man, I just can't imagine spending the rest of my life doing this. Okay, so there was that. Now, so the search was on, right? So what is that thing? And then I kept on thinking that maybe it has something to do with languages. So when I discovered interpreting, I thought, well, maybe this could be it, right? Now, here's what I can say about it. My experience with interpreting is that interpreting is something I love. I'm grateful that I'm serving as an interpreter. I enjoy serving as an interpreter, but I can't say that interpreting per se is my passion, right? So, to answer your question, Tony, what's your passion? There's no question that I discovered what my real passion is through interpreting, and that is what? Coaching, right? Leading teams. I mean, there's nothing that's been more rewarding, more fulfilling for me than to achieve my own goals by working together with my team colleagues. And then now taking those skills that I learned and being able to help somebody like you, or, you know, all the other people that have achieved their goals by simply working with me in this method, right? I mean, it punches all my buttons, right? It's rewarding, it's fulfilling, it's exciting for me. It's like, okay, this is the way I look at it. It's like, okay, so for me, it was very exciting to go and sit for the state exam, right? I love kind of high stakes, high pressure situations. I'm a weird cat in that I love the stressful job interview, right? And I just went through very, long, prolonged job interview process with UCLA, by the way. So anyway, so I love that. In a sense, I almost kind of live for that challenge, right? But that's the thing. Once you go for the exam and you pass it, that's it, right? Once you go for that interview and you get the job, that's it. So how can I repeat that experience over and over and over again? It's by coaching people, right? I get to relive that thrill. Whenever one of my candidates that I've coached, is going up for their state exam, like I'm in it, like I'm experiencing all those emotions, right? Like, oh God, there's no way that they're not going to pass this time. Like they're ready. You know what I mean? So I get to relive that excitement, and I love it. Right? Same thing for the when I coach people for the job interview. It's like I can say at this point that every candidate that I have ever coached for their job interview has gotten the job that they were interviewing for. And I've got some incredible, remarkable stories of individuals that were not the leading candidate, let's say, going into it, but they got the position just simply by virtue of the fact that they implemented all of the coaching that I gave them in terms of how to prepare for that day, right? So it's very similar things, preparing for your exam day or preparing for your interview day, and how to shine in that situation.
So really, you surely have noticed that what you are doing with all of us, regardless of the field, is that you are creating this connection
Mm,
between all of us, and
mhm,
we are learning how to support each other,
mm,
putting
mhm,
our, yes, in a lot of times, putting our egos away so we can overcome our own obstacles
mhm.
and succeed. Because I'm gonna try to share this video. If you don't mind sending me on the chat, if you remember which is the minute that the video about the connection and the benefits of connection.
Oh yeah,
Um,
and I mean it's about the 14-minute mark. I can help walk you through that. It's an incredible video to show. Yeah,
yes.
that changed everything for me when I saw that video. And I came across that video preparing for my first presentation at UCLA.
Yes, and John Cancino is asking about the kind of exercises that you practice to improve your memory for long consecutive interpreting for that exam.
Mhm.
And John, I know that you asked this question in the last interview that we had here. I'm going to tell you that in my particular case, and Tony, please help if you have an answer as well. But in our particular case, I want to say that it was very personal. There are several different strategies for consecutive, for note taking.
Mhm.
And there are different programs, different trainings that you can take. The one that worked for me was one of the Andy Gillies programs. I think he's one of the most renowned interpreters out there, and I invested in taking some of his classes. He actually has a couple of books on that, and I know that you're very interested in long consecutive, so go ahead and type
Mhm.
Andrew Gillies,
Mhm.
note taking, and he has some amazing resources and webinars as well, trainings as well, and hopefully you can catch one of his trainings online or on demand. But that is how I feel like I did get my long consecutive interpreting way better, and also with I have mentioned before Edgar Hidalgo's
Yeah.
transinterpreting course.
It's a very good, that's a great answer. And, John's question is a good one, right? Because I know that there are some specific exercises out there, to prepare for, right? To develop your memory, right? So, but that's the thing is that, I can't say that I did exercises per se. What I simply did was this. I think that what really made the difference for me overall was Virginia Valencia's program, right? Her note-taking system made all the difference for me in the world. So it was just simply a matter of practicing consecutive and then, applying the note-taking technique. And that's really what made the difference for me. Keep in mind that the consecutive, portion of the state exam, it is challenging, but it gets more challenging, obviously, on something like the federal exam. So at that point, maybe when you're preparing for the federal exam, maybe those memory building exercises would be more beneficial to you and more valuable, I think.
Yep, that's true. So going back to the video that we were talking about, I would like to share it now with everyone so we can just watch an excerpt of the video. So let's go to it. I hope that please confirm on the comments, guys, if you don't mind, if you are able to hear it. Here we go.
inside
That's actually it right
mammals
there.
when you put them in certain situations. So, for instance, you see the mother and her cub. There is a powerful hormone that is richly flowing in this situation. Some of you know what it is. It's oxytocin, not to be confused with Oxycontin. When you create connection between two mammals, and we're mammals, so we can learn from this, connection releases oxytocin. Well, who cares about oxytocin? Well, oxytocin, when it's present in our brain, it produces a sense of trust, rapport, and bonding. Some of you are thinking, yeah, there are people in my world that I could use more trust with. Is there something you can do that creates connection and unlocks oxytocin inside the brain? There absolutely is. What does she see? Anybody, what does she see? You can tell by her body language. What is it? She sees food. She sees lunch. When a mammal senses possibility, dopamine is released in our brains. And when dopamine is released, something powerful happens. Motivation, creativity, ingenuity, innovation, goal orientation. If you know somebody who is unmotivated, the first place their therapist will look is their dopamine levels. Is there something you can do that's a benevolent brain hack that will release dopamine inside another person? Absolutely. Helping them see a glimmer of possibility, of potential, of opportunity. Mammals love to outdo each other. It guarantees the survival of our species. We feel intensely pleasurable when we make progress, when we have an achievement, when people value and respect us. Why do we feel so pleasurable? Because serotonin is flowing in our brain. And when serotonin flows in our brain, we feel invincible. It unlocks a sense of agency, belief, confidence, self-efficacy. Is there something you can do that can unlock that inside another person's brain?
Yeah, and then he says there absolutely is, and that is that what he says, that partnering for progress, right? What an incredible thing. And I can say that those are, I always knew that something special here was happening within this group, if you will, within this team, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to attribute it to, what to call it, right? And so in seeing that video, I thought, my God, that's exactly it, right? So can you, and what he says is something remarkable. It's not only that I was experiencing the flow of all the most powerful positive neurotransmitters that are in our bodies, right? That the release of oxytocin that builds rapport and trust in a team member, right? That the surge of dopamine, right? Where that unlocks motivation, unlocks possibility, the lion that sees lunch, right? In our case, the lion seeing lunch is we're seeing the state exam, right, in our sights. That's what we're aiming for. That's our lunch. And then the serotonin, right, creating that sense of invincibility, right, and that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to get to a point where I was so prepared for the state exam that I was going in thinking there's no way that I'm not passing this, right? And I felt that I got to that point, and that's exactly the point where I wanted my team members to get to as well. And that's exactly the point that whenever I'm coaching someone for a job interview, that's what I want them to feel, that there's no way that they're going to pick another candidate because I'm the most highly qualified candidate for this position at this time. But in any event, to go back, I'm curious to ask you, what was it about that video that resonated with you?
You know what? Again, I'm gonna have to go back to the fitness thing, and I also link it to all my experiences studying with Isabel and Nora.
Mm-hmm.
They were my smallest group, I guess, the inner group that we created were Isabel and Nora mainly, and we created this connection between all of us, the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that definitely we developed and built trust.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bonding between us,
Mm-hmm.
and every time we would get together, I could see my goal, and I'm saying my goal because I was the first one. I believe Joanna also took the exam, but she wasn't in our inner group. We would just be the five of us together once a week. But I I could see my goal getting closer and closer. And so when I finally went and took the exam, when I went out of there, I thought that was really good. I actually performed really well. And I don't know, or I didn't know if I was going to pass it or not. I was pretty sure I did well, and I was going to get my goal, which was the master license here in Texas. But you never know. Sometimes you think that you did pretty well, and then the grade comes out to be different. But anyways, that was my experience, and I think that was it. Now, there's one thing that you mentioned in the presentation that you shared with me, and that I think ties into this. Oh, that's great, Isabel. Yeah, I did feel all that bonding. You talk about the WII frequency and the, let's see, the WIIFM,
Yeah.
and that we
It's the
should
most
switch to the
powerful FM frequency.
WIFT. So what is that? What is WIIFM? And
Yeah. So, all right. So WIIFM, it's the most powerful FM frequency in the world, and it's it's the oldest FM frequency in the world, right? It only plays the music that you want to hear 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. How great is that, right? And it came way before the streaming services and everything else, right? Now, the thing is that WIIFM is a frequency that each and every one of us is tuned into since birth, right? And we're tuned into it typically from birth until the day that we die, unless something disrupts it, right? Unless something disrupts that frequency. So what am I talking about? WIIFM, the call letters, if you will, of this FM frequency simply stands for what's in it for me, right? So there's no question but that as human beings, okay, it's survival for ourselves first, right? Even the presenter said that, mammals love to outdo each other, survival of the species. There is competition going on, right? And so in order to compete, I have to survive, I have to win, right? And so in a sense, it's natural that we're tuned into WIIFM. But here's the thing, is that in order for you to be really successful, if you will, in this team-based approach, you just have to change the frequency, and you have to change it to WIIFT. What's in it for the team, right? Because it's the most incredible paradox. Because if you come into the team-based approach with the attitude of, well, I'm going to see how good these other people are. And if I think that they're better than me, quote unquote, and if I think that they can get me to the promised land, I'll join. But on the other hand, if I think I'm better than them, right, and that they don't have anything to offer to me, then okay, maybe this is not something I'm going to do, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. So again, it's this idea that, it's being driven by self and by ego, you mentioned it, or by wanting to do all that you can to ensure the success of your team partner, and then through that you achieve your own goal. It's an incredible paradox, right? But I would say that it's no different than the ethos that exists in the military, for example. Because when you go through basic training, right, yeah, you learn how to use your weapon, and how to fight, and how to defend yourself, and how to preserve your own life on the battlefield. But the ethos is not that you're going to save your own skin, right? The ethos is that you're going to save the life of your buddy, right, in the trenches, and that your buddy also is going to train to save your life. And that's just the ethos that exists in the military, right? So I wanted to bring some of that ethos again to the team-based approach, and I believe that it truly exists there. In that same presentation, I have a testimonial letter from one of my team colleagues who said that the only thing that Tony wants is to see the success of his team colleagues. And she wrote that at the time that I was preparing for the September 2017 exam, that I passed, that so much was riding on, right? So much pressure, like in any kind of situation, right?
let me
But
see
I
if I can
wasn't
share
thinking,
that with you.
yeah,
Hold
I
on.
wasn't thinking, hey, I really need to pass this exam, so, help me out here. I was thinking, gosh, what can I do as the team leader to ensure that my team members pass the exam? And,
Yep.
and so that's the way we approached, and that's the way we worked. And it's a beautiful thing.
I love everything, and most of all, I love the passion that you have for this. It really, truly is like, and this is a testimonial that you were talking about. I don't know. Can you see it? Yes, you can see it. So yeah, this is it. And I guess I pressed the
So yeah, I highlighted that statement there, that all that Tony has ever wanted is to see his his team colleagues to succeed, and that really is, and it's really something, because I had never, that statement never really stood out to me until I was getting ready for the presentation at UCLA, and I was looking through all my stuff, and I felt like, wow, that's, it's like I'd never seen that before. And it was only after I saw that presentation that you just shared that I thought, well, my God, that makes sense, right? That it was that, it was that oxytocin, right, that was being released. In a sense, I was kind of like, I don't know, that koala, right? That was with her cub, right? I had four other cubs, if you will, that I felt responsible for in some way,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, so it's a great thing. By the way, and I do want to mention too, before I forget, because I know how much fitness means to you, Pamela. And that's the thing, is that, I thought you were going to mention how that, it's interesting how you can work on your own, right? I mean, we'll talk about exercise and get so far, but then now you hire a coach, and how much further you can get along, or you have a workout partner, right? So imagine now having a team of workout partners, let's say, right?
That's
A
that's
team,
that's the difference
right?
that I've seen, because I was doing okay,
Right.
and then let's say on my diet side, my husband joined me, and then some neighbors joined, and now it's a team-based approach, and we're all seeing results, and we're all sticking to it for the rest of our lives. But I do want to talk about your passion, which is something that I asked you a few minutes ago. And I want to know,
Mhm.
your passion currently, you said, is to
Yeah.
coach people, and you currently are coaching people for their interviews. Tell
Mhm.
us about that. How is that going? And can we take advantage of that?
Well, yes, of course. And thank you for this opportunity to talk about that. Yeah, because right now I think it's a great time, actually, in a sense, because we're coming out of the worst of this pandemic, and so I think that there will be opportunities now to start interviewing for a full-time position, if that's something that you want. Obviously, a lot of interpreters choose to become independent contractors, and that's that's a good thing. But a lot of us were looking for full-time jobs with the benefits and everything else, and it's very competitive out there, right? And so what I was able to do, just as an example, is that I had a candidate that I coached for success on the state exam. And so we celebrated that. And then I told her that if she ever, had an opportunity to interview for a job, to reach out to me, because I also do, coaching for interviews. So can you believe this? That she reaches out to me, like, my goodness, like I think at the end of March, like we were already into the pandemic, right? And I couldn't believe that the courts were hiring, somewhere here in Southern California. And but anyway, so she reached out to me and said, "Hey, Tony, I remember you said if I ever interview to reach out to you. So I'm reaching out because I've got an interview scheduled." And I thought, wow, that's great. So anyway, so we did like 4 sessions, 2 hours each session. I gave her some homework, and I said, "Look, as long as you answer the questions that you're going to get the way that I coach you, there's no one that can compete with you. You'll get the job offer, right? It doesn't, nothing else matters." And so she went, very competitive situation, and she was offered the position. And I mean, I was very thrilled for her because she's a single mom. So anyway, so now she achieved her dream again. So the point is that I have I've got coaching experience in terms of helping interpreters. I'm working with another interpreter right now in terms of coaching her for her upcoming interview as well in the courts. And and of course, I mean, I've coached nurses and teachers and salespeople and people that have worked for KCET studios and people who worked for UCLA Extension. So the full gamut, the full array. if somebody came to me and said, well, I'm an engineer. So what I do on my end is I do lots of homework in terms of preparing the questions that are specific for an engineer, but there's a certain methodology, there's a certain template that I follow for my coaching method. And so my goal again is ultimately to prepare that candidate to be at their best, and to be confident when they're going in that they are the candidate that's going to get the job offer compared to everybody else.
Yeah, and I was thinking, I think I mentioned this to you, but and I know you're basing it or focusing it on people that want to go through interviews, but I think that you can also offer it to people that are just looking to put out a pitch for a company who they want to become vendors for, or like in my case, for instance, I would like to go to attorneys' offices and say, hey, you know what? You want to hire me as your interpreter every time you have a court case because this, and this, and I'm the right candidate for you. You don't need to look any farther, or things like that. The coaching that you would provide is not only, or it doesn't only have to be for interviewees.
And I appreciate that, certainly. I mean, I'm willing to entertain any possibility. I suppose that I focused it on those that are searching for a job because, let's face it, when it's always this bittersweet feeling, right? When people get that phone call right from the recruiter saying, hey, are you available to interview for a job? It's like, there's that initial moment of yes, and then there's like, oh my God, now
what do I say?
What do I say? What do I do? And
yeah.
There's that moment of dread, right? So that's the thing. So that's where I come in again to say, okay, great, you've got this opportunity. Now let's get ready for it. Let's make the most of this opportunity, right? Let's give you that winning edge. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I'm, like I say, it's whether it's coaching teams of people for success on the exam, or coaching somebody for an interview, or coaching somebody to help them come up with a pitch, if you will. That's something I'm very comfortable with, obviously with my sales background. So those are things that I can do, and I think that those are all in the wheelhouse, if you will, of what I consider to be my true passion.
Yeah, and I think that you do a wonderful job. I do have to say, I admire you quite a bit. You are giving us all these resources for free. You're taking time off your own time to help all of your colleagues. With one would think no gain for you, but the gain that you're getting, I sense is spiritual. It's that connection, that trust, because many of us trust you for advice, for coaching. Now that I am my next goal professionally is to take the federal exam. Well, I'm definitely going to come to you. And I know that many of our colleagues here are going to do the same thing. And I know for a fact that many of them are also thankful to you for sharing all of this space so we can all share resources. And you're just teaching us to create this connection that I think it's not so available anymore, unfortunately.
Wow. Well, that was very beautifully said, Pamela. I'm very touched. I'm very honored, very humbled by what you said. And I agree with you, Pamela. And that's the thing is it, and I mentioned this during my presentation at UCLA as well, is that look at what's happened to us this past year, right? That loss of connection, right? That we literally are like chickens cooped up in these cages, right? With masks on. We've completely isolated ourselves. We don't hug each other anymore. We don't shake hands anymore, right? Now it's socially distanced, right? That's very harmful and destructive to us. I think that we're going to be paying a very, very dear price, for that. We may have escaped COVID, but, it doesn't mean that we escaped harm, right? We have harmed ourselves in some ways. And so that's the thing is that I think this is a great theme. I think the theme overall is connection, right? Let's keep connections. Let's maintain connections. Let's make new connections. Let's connect. Let's create a team to launch a nonprofit organization. Let's create a team to achieve fitness goals. Let's create a team to achieve certification goals. Let's create a team to be able to buy a house in Los Angeles. I mean, bring together a group of people that want to put their money together to buy a house, right? There's so much that you can do, right? It's just a matter of getting out of the mindset of what's in it for me, and I'm a lone soldier, right? It's just being open to that team-based approach. And so anyway, so that is certainly, again, my greatest passion.
That
I've
is,
seen
yeah.
I've seen what teams can do, and there's nothing greater. There's a quote in there that I remember from Coach Jim Valvano, and he said that, God must have loved ordinary people because he made so many of us. But every day, right, in every endeavor of life, ordinary people achieve extraordinary things, right?
Yes.
Ordinary people achieve extraordinary things. Sign me up for that. I want to continue to achieve extraordinary things in my life, and I want to do it. There it is, right? I love this guy. Jim Valvano, what an impressive man. If you want to look up one of the, I mean, I listened to his speech about, coaching his team. I listened to it over and over and over again. It's burned into my brain, and it fires me up every day that I hear it, just as if I'm hearing it for the first time. So a lot of great stuff out there, anyways.
Yes, I also loved it. When I saw this quote, the presentation, the video, everything just resonated with me so much that I was, well, I'm thrilled to have you here. I am very thankful that you have accepted the invitation to be here. Congratulations on the 5th year of the Resource Center for Certified Interpreters. Do you have any future projects that you may want to share with us?
Oh, you know what? Maybe not a future project, but if you'd be so kind as maybe to put up there's a slide there that's got my name on it, and kind of at the bottom is I've got the link for the Resource Center forum and my email address. Or I could just simply put my email address maybe in the chat, and then at least people have that way of getting in touch with me. I will say this, that I don't have any sort of website for my coaching at this point. I kind of have relied on just word of mouth or, a referral. But that's certainly, I think, something, yeah, there you go. That's something that I suppose that I need to do, and I will do at a certain point in time. I'm just not quite there yet.
Oops.
Yeah.
There we go. Is this it? Yeah, this is it, right?
It. So yeah, that's just a kind of a brief bio, and maybe that could be helpful to see as well. And then, so that's the Facebook group, Resource Center for Certified Interpreters.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And,
there we go.
And then I think my email address got cut off there. So unless,
let's see.
Nope.
No,
it got cut off. So maybe what we can do is just put it there, put it up somewhere, eventsbytv@gmail.com is the address.
Or people can reach you, right? At the Resource Center for...
That's the best way.
Mm-hmm. Hold on. Let me see if I can... Yeah, because I don't have it here. It's not on this one, but let's do this. I will share it with you. There it is. Okay. I will put it on the comments, and then we will share it for everyone that is interested in getting coached by Mr. Tony Valle. There we go. Tony, thank you so much for coming. It's been a super pleasure. You are a very passionate man for, I think, the right things, because you are super focused on what your heart tells you is the right thing to do. And I can see that you have a strong values, and I can hear it too every time I talk to you. Those values just are on you wear them on your sleeve, basically. So I haven't met too many people like you. I'm sure that many of us are privileged to have a colleague like you. I know, I shouldn't say I'm sure, I know. And so yeah, I just want to thank you. I want to wish that the Resource Center for Certified Interpreters continues for many, many, many years, and success in all of your projects, because with your strategies and your tactics, you always make it work. It sounds like. Before we leave, I just want to remind you about the workshops for traduccionjurídica.es. I left the link up in the comments a few minutes ago. And then HITA has a training coming this Saturday. Please go to the HITA group website, hitagroup.org. That's here in Houston. It's going to be a free webinar if you are a member of the HITA Association. And Gaucha Translation is offering also a free training for the interpreters in the healthcare field. So go ahead and check it out. Thank you again. And if you have anything else to say before we say bye?
The only thing I want to say again is just congratulations to you on your success in achieving your goal for state exam, your success with the Linguist podcast. You're also an amazing woman. You're a wife, a mother of 3 young kids. Go Spurs, by the way. Yes. So no, I mean, and that's the thing. You mentioned that you have respect and admiration for me. I appreciate it. I would say right back at you. You're doing a lot of great things. This podcast, I've watched it grow and develop, and all the guests that you get are just amazing interpreters, some of the brightest lights in our field. So I feel like I'm standing on the shoulder of giants here, but I'm
You are. You are one. You are definitely one. So
well,
thank you for
that's kind of
coming.
you to
And thank
say.
you, linguists, by the way. Thank you, because the goal, and Nora is here, and I have to have Nora one of these days. But her and I started this just to help, just to create connection, because
Right.
we could see already back, in 2020 when this was started, that this was just going to be hard. So all that we wanted was to create connections, and I think that we have achieved that. So thank you, everyone, for staying here, linguists. I really appreciate your support, and keep following us. We'll see you next week, and after next week, I'm taking a vacation.
Excellent. Well deserved.
Thank you, guys. We'll
All
see
right.
you in the next
Good night,
episode.
everyone, and thanks to everyone for their participation as well. I'm grateful for everyone that participated with their comments, and I'll look forward to seeing them myself later.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye, linguists.
Good night.